The pervasiveness of globalization. A recurrent theme throughout the text is the assumption that globalization has altered many fundamental aspects of the enterprise's understanding of the way its environment operates. Globalization has the potential to intensify competitive rivalry. It associated the neoliberal trend. What is the neoliberal trend or neoliberalism? Neoliberalism is contemporarily used to refer to market-oriented reform policies such as eliminating price controls, deregulating capital markets, lowering trade barriers, and reducing, especially through privatization and austerity, state influence in the economy. It reduced the barriers to enter markets across the world. It also enhances the power of buyers by increasing their choice of suppliers and facilitates the emergence of substitutes. It is as buyers themselves that enterprises reap benefits in terms of the greater choice of suppliers available to them. One example of it in practice is when Chile in the late 1970s, under the military dictatorship of General Pinochet, adopted free market policies including privatization, deregulation, and reduced government intervention in pensions, health, and education. In order to survive in this increasingly interdependent world with mixture of new threats and challenges, enterprises have to develop both defensive and offensive strategies to cope with these changes. Globalization will only remain a salient process as long as policymakers mutually agree that it is of benefit. This underpins the intimate link between the commercial process of globalization and its broader socio-political implications. While new technologies globalize business, they also potentially globalize cultures and expose social structures to new cultures. Thus, the time-space and cost-space convergence promoted by the application of technology can be mixed effects. Clearly, if the political environment turns against the globalization process and parts of it begin to unravel, there will be significant implications for business operations. In short, there is no inevitability that progressive international economic integration will result in a fully globalized economy. The surge in the number of regional economic groupings is both a defensive and an offensive reaction to the globalization process. These regional trade agreements act as a diluted form of globalization, exposing states to open markets on a limited geographical scale. They can work to exclude third parties but can also provide platforms for enhancing international competitiveness. These arrangements are not necessarily antagonistic to globalization and can provide a stepping stone for further globalization. For a large number of states, their lack of economic development result in their effective exclusion from the global trading system and limits the benefits they obtain from it. For many developing states, policies have to be geared toward a strong external focus with resources directed toward export-led growth. This is a sea change for those developing countries where policies of import substitution, often politically expedient in terms of domestic political constituencies, had failed to deliver on development. Developed countries have an obligation to ensure a fair and open trading system that allows developing states to compete equitably. However, development has been hindered in many countries by corruption, natural disaster, and/or a large lingering debt. The situation is not aided by the power of developed states to dictate terms to developing countries to ensure they conform the rules decided for them by the more prosperous states. All of these issues have a profound effect on business strategy. They spell out the center of power and seek to confer a greater degree of predictability upon the international business environment. The internationalization of economies represents a core challenges for business in terms of how it organizes itself and the rights and opportunities it has when operating across borders.
The framework of enterprise internationalization. The process of internationalization of enterprises revolves around a number of core themes based upon the enhanced commercial freedoms granted to enterprises by the changing commercial and technological environment. These new opportunities, which are heavily influenced by the globalization process, create new challenges for both businesses and policymakers. Product markets and exports were the conventional means by which enterprises entered the international arena. The GATT framework, established in 1948, has been responsible for a progressive reduction in tariffs on goods. The Uruguay Round took a substantial steps forward in establishing a core framework within which services could be liberalized, a process that has been directly assisted by technological change. However, the relative newness of trade and services means that these sectors are still in the main heavily regulated and protected from excessive competition. This position is likely to change under the influence of experience, technological change, and the growing awareness of the importance of cost-efficient quality services with the new economy. The development of international brands and the establishment of English as the language of international business have caused growing resentment of cultural domination, not least from leading Francophone states. This has led to development of localization as a strategy undertaken by business as they seek to combine the logic of globalization with the need to cater to local tastes and cultures.
Resource-based issues for business in international markets. Conventional trade theories stress the importance of resources in determining the competitiveness of nations. Consequently, firms need to ensure that adequate resources of sufficient quality are available at all locations where they seek to compete. Thus, access to the global resource base is a key factor influencing international production. However, with the utilization of this global resource base comes responsibility in terms of the demand for sustainability and the need to ensure that the system works to the benefit of all.
Labor is one factor of production that cannot be easily duplicated by other states and is also one of the most immobile of factors in terms of barriers.
Freeing of trade could potentially lead to the progressive lowering of labor standards as states seek to compete with one another. In an internationalized environment, firms can simply relocate production to places where controls are less stringent. For these reasons, and as a result of recognition that the environment is a global resource, multilateral solutions have been sought to environmental problems. To date, these solutions, with exemptions, have been ineffective and elusive, and agreement is made more difficult by the fundamental disagreement between the developing and developed states over the extent to which this concern should be addressed via international policy. Meanwhile, many enterprises have adopted voluntary codes of practice in recognition of strong commercial rationale for being seen to be environmentally friendly.
Since the 1980s, there have been substantial changes within the international business environment. These changes have been fueled by the emergence of a broadly neoliberal hegemony among policymakers. However, the emergence of globalization is a protected process, and a truly global economy remains a pipe dream. Nevertheless, the global economy has embarked upon an ambitious phase of integration. While this process is not irreversible, it is likely to be a powerful factor shaping the competitive strategies of business for some decades to come. Thank you so much for listening. I would like to end this presentation with a quote by Benjamin Franklin: "No nation was ever ruined by trade."